if you can take a right decision at the right time, you will be able to win a war which is not at a heavy cost of life and resources, and even time for that matter. So therefore, the Defense Space Agency per se gives you huge amount of leverage in technology to be able to fight a non-contact, non-kinetic battle, and also but to support the contact and kinetic battle. Whereas cyber agency per se is non-contact, non-kinetic, but also can support majorly. But both of them put together will bring huge amount of asymmetry in warfare.
Hi, welcome to Security Chips. So today we have General PJS Pannu with us, former Deputy Chief Integrated Defense Services. He was responsible to coordinate joint operations of Army, Navy and Air Force. He had a privilege of raising Defense Space Agency, Cyber Agency and Special Forces Division. At present, he is a Senior Advisor Space and Chairman Defense Space Committee at SATCOM Industry Association. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much, Bhupesh, for getting me over to this program of Security Chips.
So it's a pleasure to have you here. I think a lot of things I see. You raised Defense Space Agency. You also raised Cyber Agency. You also raised Special Forces Division. So it itself is a entire universe, if I have to say. So how does a space agency, a defense agency, and a special forces unit, how they work in a coordinated way?
Bhupesh, it's a very good question that the Defense Space Agency, the Defense Cyber Agency, and Special Forces Division, they all came up together. In that, the special forces of a country have already been there. It is here that we were raising a Special Forces Division. And when you are raising Special Forces Division per se, we are talking about Army, Navy, Air Force, Special Forces coming together under the tri-services. So that is a big difference. As far as the Defense Space Agency and Defense Cyber Agency is concerned, again, all the three services put together are contributing towards the concept of space in war fighting and cyber as a domain which will be the fifth domain, work as a force multiplier, because sitting in the Data Security Council of India as a forum, you find that whatever is coming as information, today it is the speed and the accuracy which is extremely important for decision making. If you can take a right decision at the right time, you will be able to win a war which is not at a heavy cost of life and resources, and even time for that matter. So therefore, the Defense Space Agency per se gives you huge amount of leverage in technology to be able to fight a non-contact, non-kinetic battle, and also but to support the contact and kinetic battle. Whereas cyber agency per se is non-contact, non-kinetic, but also can support majorly. But both of them put together will bring huge amount of asymmetry in warfare, and so does the Special Forces Division bring huge amount of asymmetry in warfare. So asymmetry itself in technology and the creation of these three agencies and forces that, as we loosely call it, is extremely important. So this is all the asymmetry of technology.
I think you started in a great sir. I think you have right from asymmetry to cyber to adding special forces and how they are important, how a coordinated system has to work. You have given that importance and you have mentioned that importance. You also mentioned about Data Security Council of India. And as you come from SIA, which is a SATCOM Industry Association, I do understand that Data Security Council of India is leading the Charter of Cybersecurity. At the same time, SATCOM Industry Association is leading the Space Charter for India at this moment. And we see a lot of changes happening in the space sector. We see a lot of private players coming up in this domain. And a lot of startups are also initiating a lot of projects in this domain. which again brings to a lot of risk from a cyber standpoint, from multiple other aspects, which we would like to understand from you. So, how do you see the campaigns are unfolding with space and cyber being added in this multi-domain operations today? So,
Bhupesh, earlier conventionally, India has been preparing for a war, which is three-dimensional war: the Army, Navy, Air Force, that is the sea, air, and the land. And land became the major focus of our country because of a land disputes. So, therefore, when you're looking at the maritime situation, the sea domination, because we are a seafaring nation and Indian Ocean being our prime responsibility, where a lot of assets lie in the exclusive economic zone. And also, there are far too many global players who want to dominate the seas in the Indian Ocean. Right. So, therefore, the marine domain, in any case, has its own importance. Militarily, also, the navies of the world, and that to say, for example, the People's Liberation Army Navy plan, right, has developed so much asset wise and capability wise that they're all over in the Indian Ocean doing exploration of various kinds. And therefore, the Americans decided that it is not only the Pacific, but Indo-Pacific that became their area of interest. So when Indo-Pacific became their area of interest, the large issue of the marine forces or the naval forces was to make sure that our assets and our domination through where huge amount of trade and global energy flows remains something that India will be able to not only dominate but secure our own assets, and because we have island territories there and we have huge amount of coastal area to defend. Defense of coastal areas, of course, is not by securing the coastline, but making sure that our presence is there in both the Bay of Bengal, the Arabian Sea, and then further down south into the Indian Ocean. So, largely, it is the Indian Ocean rim which becomes our area of interest.
great. I think you mentioned about all the critical missions, geopolitically, how it helps the country, and strategically, how it helps the country. So, adding to this, sir, so there is a lot of mission planning those that goes behind with all these missions, all these planning, all these strategizing things. Predictive intelligence is something which gets a lot of importance in this case, and similarly, it is linked to the meshed intelligence and the operations as well. So, how do you link the non-contact to contact and non-kinetic to kinetic warfare in this current scenario?
See, in the last question, I connected here when you spoke about the multi-domain operations. That from the Army, Navy, and Air Force, the three dimensions were more conventional in nature. But as we add the fourth frontier, which is the space, and the fifth domain or the fifth frontier, that is the cyber, it should be called five domain operations, right, not three dimension to five dimension operations. But it is multi domain operations, it is not restricted to five. Right. Because with space and cyber, it opens a plethora of other domains that will start kicking in, making sure that all our national security and our military, which is going to be based on the technology deterrence, are all then wedded together under the multi-domain operations. So it will go into the homeland security, it can go into the internal security, nation as one. When you start talking about the Internet of Battle things, Internet of military things, and then you start talking about the net centric warfare, it starts expanding to a point that you really can't now restrict it to 3, 4, 5, 6. It'll be multi-domain. Now, when you're talking about contact and non-contact, the whole issue is that if you are able to win a non-contact battle, you may not need to go into the contact battle.
Right, sir.
Because your non-contact ability to have a great ISR, which will give you huge amount of meshed intelligence, which will make you capable for meshed operations, will as it is take you ahead of the curve.
Right.
And the moment you're ahead of the curve, you can jump onto the information warfare.
Right.
And your information narrative will be much better.
Right.
Because the entire visibility is much better.
Right.
The second thing is that as the battles get networked and they are terrestrial and non-terrestrial, you find that a lot of radio frequencies and the electronic intelligence will start throwing in information which is available for exploiting in the battle. Again, it will contribute towards the meshed intelligence leading to meshed operations. So, as a result, if a country can win a non contact, they may not need to go into kinetic, but the notion of victory itself is extremely important. So, therefore, nations land up going kinetic. Because it is only once you go kinetic, the real threat of destruction or degradation can bring the nation down to not fighting a war. So, really speaking, Op Sindoor, or even before that, you look at the Hamas and Israeli conflict. Right. And then you're talking about Iran, which again became part of the extended arc of the Middle East. A huge amount of degradation happened. In any case, in the Russian-Ukraine conflict, which is much older now, it has gone to the third or the fourth year, a huge amount of degradation happened. So all these conflicts, the kinetic forces had to be unleashed to give you a notion of victory or give you the complete victory or the understanding that you need to now stop fighting wars because it will destroy life, property, and even the governments start worrying about their own existence. Right. So I think it is a bit of both, but earlier it was more contact and more kinetic and kinetic. I think largely the preliminary operations are going to be more non-contact and non-kinetic, and it'll give you a huge amount of technological edge and deterrence over the adversary.
Great. I think you touched upon the right chord, wherein you're saying that non-contact going forward would be actually the game changer. Would be more frequently we can see that. As you gave example, you said about the recent war between Iran, Israel, America, and then Russia, Ukraine, and Op Sindoor you spoke about. You spoke about how this kinetic warfare has finally led to the degradation. At the same time, I certainly would like to give an example wherein a cyber attack back in 2010, which we saw in a form of kinetic warfare between Israel and Iran. So same Natanz power unit, which was earlier attacked in 2010 with a non-contact cyber attack, had a similar effect which a kinetic warfare did this time. But the consequences are different. The degradation part is different. So I think rightly said, sir. While we say this non-contact is going to get critical, a lot of cyber, lot of autonomous things will come into play, and they will play a major role in this non-contact warfare going forward. So in a real-time processing, if I have to say, command and control plays a major role in this domain in autonomous ecosystem. So how do you think that what would be the role of space and what would be the role of a ground network in that kind of scenario?
Actually, Bhupesh, you have asked a very large canvas of questions, which is very important for me to give you very important aspect of the non-contact but kinetic warfare.
Right.
You also mentioned Stuxnet.
Right.
That without contact, the whole nuclear program of Iran was destroyed. But it did not remain in the same state. They started again developing the program, and therefore now they have gone kinetic. Really, they had to physically, the Americans and the Israelis had to really look at how to physically destroy the nuclear infrastructure of Iran. As far as the cyber attack is concerned, I think depending on the ability of a nation, you invest in cyber and space infrastructure. Space infrastructure is huge as far as cost is concerned, but as far as cyber is concerned, even a poorer nation can afford a cyber capability. It is not for any nation, if it doesn't have a strong economy, certainly cannot go into space. So when you're talking about the fourth frontier, that is the space, which is more expensive, and the fifth frontier, which is cyber, which is less expensive but also very potent. So how the economy would unfold is that I think a lot of cyber attacks would come on certain critical systems and make sure that all your networks and data centers are either manipulated or destroyed completely so that your decision support systems collapse. And and the moment the command and control fails, there is very little to do because whatever kinetic you go, maybe either you'll go at the wrong place or at the wrong time, or there will be inadequacy in overall synergy between various elements which are fighting a battle. Army, Navy, Air Force, and the other dimensions which are started folding in. So therefore, we expect that autonomous warfare will replace the contact of a human, but there will be certain contact of the machine. So, for example, if the missiles have to come in, or the drones have to come in, or the robotics have to be thrown in, then there will be certainly somebody contacting you. Like the drones will actually go in, but drones are nothing but an aircraft without a pilot. So, it is a contact war, but it is not a human contact, but there is a definite contact to machine. So, machine to machine warfare will become more of contact warfare and less of a human contact. But what is also extremely important is that the war may not unfold on the frontier. The war can actually unfold in the hinterlands with a long range precision and lethal systems like missiles, which are targeted and controlled from the space, can make even industry or infrastructure which is in the hinterland far away from the borders will start getting hit. So as a result, there will be sometimes less of the boots on ground, but bots on ground, which will start fighting. So, boots and bots have to have a teaming. And I think this boot bot teaming is something that we need to hugely understand and invest in when you talk about the artificial intelligence and autonomous warfare coming in.
Great. I think great perspective, sir. Boots and bots. I think this is something, this is a great takeaway. You spoke about access, you spoke about missiles. So we would like to understand more from you in this autonomous warfare domain, how the anti-access and anti-denial will play a major role. What is a BMD assurance which can play a major role in this warfare?
You see, A2AD, that is the anti-access area denial, was very well described when it was just air contact battle. That you have your a limit that you draw, beyond which, ADIZ, that you have your own aerial identification zone, that beyond that you will not allow the adversary to come in. But the moment you go into space, there is no sovereign territory in space. It is a global common. So the A2AD itself starts getting a very different meaning. You can't tell a country that, hey, you will not fly a satellite over my space. That you can't do because satellites, in any case, your satellites are also going all over the globe. So therefore, the A2AD is understood very differently up to 30, 40,000 feet, where you can have a winged service or the Air Force to dominate the area. Beyond that, then the missiles, which enter the space and then get into your own territory, like the hypersonic missiles, they can actually get into the space, they can go over 100 kilometers, then make a re-entry. and you do not know where they are coming because they will go into a glide and about anything around 10. So anything above 10 Mach will make it above 5 Mach is hypersonic. Okay. So imagine the hypersonic gliding at you from a direction which is not predicted would bring in accuracy in targeting, but still you will not be able to target them in the air. So therefore, you also need to have the counter hypersonic technology develop. That is how the BMD is coming up. As far as the conventional missiles are coming, it is very easy to map the trajectory, and you can target like the Iron Dome, the Golden Dome, all that story that they are talking about. But in the hypersonics, the Golden Dome, of course, they're talking about they will be able to A, detect the hypersonic, and B, will be able to knock off or destroy a missile which is coming in. But I think there's a lot of work to be done on that. And I think that is the main concern in A2AD, that you can do air to air, A to AD, very in a very definitive way. But in Nop Sindoor, what happened? None of the air forces crossed the border. They were doing A to AD well within their own areas. So what was happening is it was the beyond visual range missiles which were actually hitting at each other. The A to air missiles were also there, and A to ground missiles were also there. And then we had our own BrahMos, which is ground to ground cruise missiles working there. So I think the intrusion with technology and going beyond borders through technology is going to be very much a possibility. So therefore, to guard your territory against such attacks is becoming a big challenge. So therefore, investment in S400, S500, and the radar technology coming in, making sure that you have quantum radars, so you are able to break the codes and make sure that the missiles don't target you. I think all these technologies, everybody is working overtime, from AI, AML, you've gone to quantum, and let's see how it works and what is the future in it. And the moment you put all these technologies into space and cyber, it'll give you a whole lot of different dimension, which is something where the scientists, the academia, the military, the R&D, the private industry per se have to sit together. And private industry is going to be one of the major domains in warfare.
Absolutely. I think, sir, a great perspective. You spoke about how A to D is going to play a major role. With this, I think a lot of I think the success goes to our navigation system as well. If I speak about Navic specifically, which played a major role in this warfare. So how do you see security of those navigation systems would be crucial? So that is first question. Second would be what India should do. Another navigation systems which can play a major role in this kind of scenario.
Bhupesh, when you're talking about space, I would say that space per se, in a very ordinary sense of understanding, has three attributes in warfighting. One is the ISR, that is the Earth observation, which also includes SAR, and then it has electronic intelligence put together. So it is observing directly and also understanding how the electronic intelligence is shaping up. That will give you a huge amount of information. Second thing is communication. That there is huge amount of communication which is happening. Our traditional satellites are geo satellites, which are static relatively, and giving you our GSAT configuration type of communication. And the third, of course, is the GPS or the GNSS. That is the Global Navigation System, as they say, satellite system. We have NAVIC, which of course started with a larger configuration, but we have only 7 satellites currently operational. And because it is 7 plus 2 plus 2 configuration was there. But these are only regional, up to say 1800 kilometers beyond our borders. And their orbits are also such that they are not giving you a global coverage. And the moment you have a configuration which is more regional, the efficiency is that much more lesser. So therefore, for war fighting in space, there is a requirement of a triad. And the triad is that we have all the satellites in different orbits, the low Earth orbit, the medium Earth orbit, and the GEO, that is at say 35,000 plus kilometers, all into certain orbits, type of orbits, which will give you a global coverage, and also it will give you a coverage that the satellites are available in a formation or in a constellation that they are giving you 24/7 service. And they all have to work in unison. To get a deep and accurate system for targeting, you need to have Earth observation, you need to have electronic intelligence, you have to have communication, and you have to have the PNT, which is the navigation. So PNT is position, navigation, and timing. All three have to work together. So really speaking, it is three this way and three that way. When I say three this way means Leo, Mio, Geo, and three that way that I'm talking about is the Earth observation, the communication, and the navigation or the PNT. All have to work in unison. And I think the triad is the one which will give you the ultimate power of space. And not forgetting the cyber networks which will protect the triad. So you can have a triad, but if they are not protected, all the triad can be compromised. So therefore, the fourth and the fifth domain have to sit together. So it'll be 3 plus 3 or 3 into 3, if that is triad into triad, plus the cybersecurity put together, will give you the ultimate secure systems to make sure that you fight a battle of air, aerospace, and cyber in cohesion with one another. That is, I think, that is the future. And of course, when you're talking about the machine coming in, the automation coming in, and the quantum coming in, I think there is going to be a huge race in who compromises whose networks. If you can keep your network secure, and you can destroy or disrupt the enemy's grid of warfare, that is where I think we are headed. So therefore, it's important to understand the space wars other than the space controlled operations.
Great. I think thanks, sir. Thanks for this perspective. You also spoke about Leo, Mio, and of course Geo, and how in the coordinate controls they have to work together from a cyber standpoint. Um, if I have to speak about Leo, I was just reading somewhere there are almost 80,000 satellites there at this point of time. Starlinks is coming to India. Uh, would be revolutionary game changer for Indian uh, connectivity ecosystem. From a threat standpoint, if I have to say, I'm told that I read somewhere, in fact, there could be in future there could be chances wherein the connectivity is such a great availability is there through a mobile phone one can think of bringing down a satellite. Maybe I'm not sure if that is true, or it can happen any day. From a security standpoint, if I have to say, what all threats, maybe if one satellite is hit at a Leo, it may entire create an entire debris around and can hit the other satellites. So from that space, how do you sense the risk? What could be there in the upcoming future?
The LEO satellites are closer to the Earth and therefore are more efficient. So, therefore, a lot of communication satellites earlier were believed to be best in the GEO because they are relatively static over you, and then you can point your receivers and the transmitters, and it worked as a good relay system. But the moment you come down to MEO, you have to have more number of satellites. But the moment you want to reduce the latency because you want to reduce the distance that the frequency covers and comes down, so you have to bring down the satellite so that, say, it is up to 300 kilometers. So it means it has to only travel, your electronic wave has to go only 300 kilometers up and 300 kilometers down, just about 600 kilometers. So there is very little latency. Secondly, you have to increase the throughput. So these are the two things that the entrepreneur like Elon Musk realized that actually he can configure broadband services through the LEO configuration. But the number of satellites that he has to throw them are humongous. More number of countries that he serves, more number of machines which start using the broadband, more number of satellites he'll have to add. Right. So as you said, they're talking about thousands of satellites. Right. On a given day, how many satellites are orbiting the Earth is very difficult for us to count, because for years together, these satellites have been thrown up. Many have become dead and many have become debris. Right. But to say that if there are about 14 to 15,000 satellites, uh, out of that 14 to 15,000 satellites, roughly about 12,000 could be live satellites today. And out of those 12,000 live satellites, 7,500 alone belong to Elon Musk. So if you really see that the nations have satellites, which are Chinese have about 900 to 1,000 satellites. They're also planning to throw tens of thousands of satellites for their own broadband. Elon Musk is going to have in the multiples of 10,000s thrown into the low Earth orbit. Low Earth orbit is becoming very congested. Right. Though 7,500 satellites, the way they are spaced out, it is not that you find that they are looking like debris, but debris is a big challenge. Right. So over a period of time, the LEO is going to become highly congested. The ultimate king in the orbits will be a MEO, right, which will have a little more latency, but it can be overcome with technology. The moment you go into the laser links and all that, you will find that there will be overcoming of latency. The throughputs will increase. Right. So therefore, the MEO ultimately will be a winner in communication. It will also get the other attributes like the PNT satellites, that is the GPS satellites, are already sitting in the MEO. Right. And the Earth observation will continue to remain in LEO, but it can also go a little above the normal communication satellites. So I think because of the congestion, the altitudes are going to increase, but the technology will make sure that the disadvantages of increase in altitude are brought down through use of research and development and technology.
So MEO is something that we have to look forward. I think technology will reach and will make us enable to utilize MEO in a better way.
And also, MEO is not a very set altitude. MEO is anything between 2,000 to 35,000. Right. So MEO cannot be described that you're sitting at 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 is MEO. MEO can be anything at 2,000. It can be anything at 35,000.
Great. I think which brings and to me ask you another question related. There is a lot of privatization happening in the space sector in India. We see a lot of startups coming up with their satellites. There are many startups which started making rockets as well. So while all this is happening, I'm sure there should be some agency who is guiding them up around cyber nuances, around the technology. Of course, CIA is taking a major role and is guiding them. But from a cyber standpoint, what all things they need to look at if they have to start anything, because that brings a huge responsibility on their part as well, because their satellites ultimately going to the space, and if their systems are compromised at some level, in fact, entire supply chain is compromised at some level, it can create a major chaos in the entire space ecosystem in India.
You see, when you send a satellite into an orbit, it can remain there for very, very long time, 20 years, 30 years. So imagine there are some 30-year-old satellites which are still functional, right? At that time, people had not heard of the cyber networks. Right. So it means the technology that they were using is more analog, more, as people understand, safer communication without any complications of electronics. Slowly, what has happened is technology has gone into miniaturization. It means in the same weight category, you can put in so much more payload.
Right.
You can have so much more efficiency and multifunctionality of a satellite. So now the satellites more or less are like flying computers. And flying computers would say that uh, they can do edge computing, so they can go into AI/ML, and they can also go into quantum, as we spoke about this morning.
Right.
So earlier satellites, which were built and are still functional, are using the old technology. And the cyber industry has realized that some of these older satellites have a vulnerability
Right.
to cyber attacks. And intermediate technologies also have not been configured to that kind of a security levels where they will not be exposed to cyber vulnerability. There can be a lot of backdoors coming in or all that. Now, it's very difficult for you to bring down a satellite. I mean, satellite is functional, it will continue to function.
Right.
Very difficult to upgrade a satellite while on the flight. Now, of course, newer satellites are programmable. You can even upgrade
Right.
from a distance.
Right.
So, therefore, the newer generation of space infrastructure has to make sure that cybersecurity is completely packaged into everything that they do in every segment of space, whether it is a launch segment, ground segment, or space segment. So, in a satellite or a rocket or even an Earth station.
Right.
Even when the designs are being prepared, or when the satellite is being coupled onto a rocket for a launch,
Right.
a lot of programs which go into coupling and decoupling. So all of these have to be cyber hardened and tested. So therefore, it is the cyber industry which has to be extremely sensitive to make sure that the space industry has those specifications, those test beds, and penetration testing would be very important feature for the space industry. Obviously when you talk about penetration, you're talking about cyber penetration.
Of course.
So this is very important. So fourth and the fifth domain have to work together. So though we keep talking about fourth is the final frontier, but it cannot be so much final without the cyber.
Right.
So to make fourth frontier as the final frontier, the cyber as a younger brother will have to support it.
Great. I think, sir, you mentioned about why cyber should be implemented right from the design, um, why it is important, and this cyber community has to ensure that our space assets are also secure. I think we had a great discussion, sir, and I would certainly like to have your last views on. You raised defense agency, right? You raised cyber agency, you raised special forces initiatives. So what is next, sir?
I think there will be more surprises. Like somebody said, did anybody have a vision of India or vision of the world about 40 years back? But I don't think so. Anybody could have had that kind of a vision, because the kind of development which is happening in human mind will surpass our own expectations. The implants which are going to be put into the cerebral cavities of a human being, those implants will make sure that the human beings have augmented thinking. So what we will land up doing, human mind might start beating the technology one day, because if you start empowering your mind through implants. So over a period of time, if the machine and the man get into a combination of their power, I think something will happen where either the nature will kick in to limit it, and if just nature doesn't kick in, I think there will be certain things which will happen beyond our expectation and imagination. So I think we have to be very careful that India as a country should keep up with the development with the rest of the world, because the moment they use technology and India does not use technology, then one of the authors of a book said, we should not be reduced to the labor colony of the world, that ultimately you land up helping those who you cannot surpass. So therefore, the message that I have for ourselves is that remain alert and remain ahead. Otherwise, I fear that the gap between the haves and the have nots is going to be so big that the have nots will not be able to catch up with the haves. And I think the money will go to those, see the cryptocurrency, see the dark web, see certain things which are developing so fast. Today, you can do things much faster and in much more elaborate manner than you ever did in the past. Right. Because this machine is helping a human being. But my only fear is that man should not become like a machine. Man should remain human, and the machines should also become more human. But both are unfortunately becoming more machine-like.
Great, sir. I think we had a great conversation. Boots and bots, something that I'll remember. Remain alert and remain ahead is something that we'll take away from this overall conversation. And we had a great time discussing things with you.
Thank you, Bhupesh.
Thank you, sir.
I really enjoyed myself.